Hi everyone. Hi everyone. How you doing? Tolulokba here. Welcome to today's session of the AWS Studies series. With me here, I have Abdulatif Ogundipe. Hi Ogundipe. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. Good to have you. Good to be here.
Thank you so much. So we have Abdulatif Ogundipe here with over 3 years of experience in the field of data science and machine learning. Abdulatif Ogundipe have had the opportunity to work on diverse projects, and he has developed a strong skill set in designing and implementing cutting edge solution. Is passionate is passionate about leveraging data driven insights to solve complex problems and drive business growth. He has proficiency in utilizing various AWS services and have earned the AWS Certified Solutions Architect certification. His core programming languages are Python and SQL. Thank you, Abdulatif, for joining us today. It's so great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Tolu.
Welcome.
Oh,
So, Abdulatif, it's time for you to share your knowledge with us. Thank you for having us today. You can
okay.
proceed.
All right. Thank you for that welcoming. Um, I'm glad to join you here today, and I'm happy that I'm sharing something I'm quite passionate of with respect to the services related to AWS data science, which relates to people in the profession of data analytics, machine learning engineering, and all. So, because the core of everything is about how you can manage your data. So, without further ado, yeah, we are behind schedule. So, let's go ahead. I will be speaking on the updates to Glue Data Catalog and multi-engine views. So, can go ahead to the next slide. All right, so this is the outline. This is the brief outline which I'll be taking you through for you to understand the concept of what we want to look at today. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so to begin with, I like to start my presentation like this just to put a context for the audience, especially people that are the beginner level. Why are we having this discussion on this topic? So I'm presenting a case of an inefficient data management experienced at Limitless Enterprise. And the situation is that Limitless Enterprise have manages vast data, including customer transaction inventory records, market analytics, and this data spans across different databases due to the nature of the data, different databases, different formats. So one key difficulty that Limitless Enterprise is having is to ensure timely analysis, maintaining data integrity, which are very key to making informed decisions. To put a more concept to it, imagine you as a member of data analytics teams at Limitless Enterprise, and you are spending hours to integrate data from different databases. Citing from example, you have some data at Oracle database, you have some at Amazon bucket, you have some at some other buckets just to generate a basic sales report for board meeting for the board members to make decision. So you can see that really ineffective data management can ruin a business. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So now, looking at the situation of the inefficient management database, what is the solution that we have with respect to the AWS solution, ULA, the AWS Glue? So, the AWS Glue, I the AWS Glue is a serverless data integration service that makes it easier to discover, prepare, move, and integrate data from multiple sources. Don't forget, you remember when we're looking at the case of Limitless Enterprise, when they are situation managing data from different sources. So two key things that you should take note. There are quite a number of things that you should take note about Glue, but you look at the serverless, very important. We'll talk more about it, whereby you don't need to create any infrastructure to perform your data analysis, then or to perform your data engineering process. Similarly, multiple sources. It's not that you have to do for one source at a time. And if you look at the key features, looking at the figure on the right hand side of the slide, you will see that the first thing is about data integration in engine options. You have several integrations to different engine to be able to access your data or review. You also have event driven ETL process. ETL process whereby you extract and transform your data into what you need it for. So base maybe you could with AWS Glue, you could design it in a way that whenever the data reaches the database, you don't need to be around. It's just manually trigger. You can use some service like the Lambda to ensure this. Similarly, the no code ETL jobs. I'm very sure if anyone in data profession, you'll have seen what's happening with Power BI Tableau for data visualization. So this is something similar for data engineering, managing your data. You can do ETL jobs without writing code. I can remember when I started my own process of ETL process with Python programming, you have to use pandas, numpy to do a lot of aggregation, to do a lot of managing the data, putting in a good shape. But with AWS Glue, you can do that. Then to the last thing, the reason why I'm picking the last but it's not the least is the AWS Glue data catalog, because it's the essence of why we are here today. Because we are looking at the Glue data catalog and multi-engine views. So this data catalog, which is responsible, is like the art of AWS Glue because it brings out the metadata which is being used by other facilities from different data source. So AWS is like a kind of integration, like bringing all the data source and presenting it to the necessary tools to look at your data. We'll speak more about it as we go on in the next slide. All right, next slide. Okay, so now I try to just to manage my slide. I just brought out this from the Osmart from the AWS. This is a typical um AWS catalog, and you can see from the pictorial view. Can you see that the AWS data catalog is at the middle? You can see AWS Redshift, Amazon S3, Amazon RDS. These are sources where you can get your data, which is being put inside the AWS and be transferred. This is being connected to the AWS Glue data catalog, which serve like a funnel. You can see like a kind of funnel shape, because what it means that if you look at a funnel, you can see that the funnel has a big mouth at the top, which can take in a lot of things. That is showing that it's coming from multiple sources. But when you look at the below, it has a very streamlined, showing that yes, even though we have data from multiple sources, it can be passed to necessary application. Look at Amazon Athena, which is more of like a structured query language platform whereby you can use to manage your data, check for insights, how you use MySQL and all. Similarly, as Amazon Redshift, you can query the data from different sources that has been accumulated by the AWS Glue data catalog. And similarly, like the AWS Elastic Map Reduce, which also need EC2 instances to be provisioned for it to work. So, and this can be connected to the Amazon quick site. So this is just to show you the component that AWS Glue data catalog is a key to our AWS Glue. So it's the one that collects the metadata from different database for it to be able to process by different. So can you see the way we are going? We start from the problem, we look at the service responsible for solving the problem. Then we are now looking at Glue data catalog as the art of what we are using to solve the inefficient management problem. Don't forget, what we are still trying to look at is the updates on Glue data catalog and multi-engine views. But I can't jump to that without bringing up all these introduction. So please stay with me as I put you through this one after the other. So let's go to the next slide. All right. Okay, great. Now we've talked about AWS data catalog, and it's very essential to put some concepts for you to know what is happening at the background. AWS data catalog, I'm just telling you, a lot of different database is being connected to the AWS data catalog. How is this achieving this. Here comes the glue crawler, which is, I call it the art of AWS, the art of AWS glue. So because what the crawler does, as it has been explained here, is that it gets the metadata from the data source and write it to the AWS glue data catalog. Don't worry, I've dedicated a slide because you'll be wondering, we are talking about data. How have we also looking at the metadata? Don't worry, just be patient. Just let's take it a bit, so that will be this session will be very profitable. So now let's look at the crawler. Like I've said, it's using built-in or custom classifier to determine the data format, the schema, and other properties. It groups the data into tables, pushes the data into AWS catalog. Can you see? It is the crawler. If you are looking at the picture, can you see the different data stores? You can see the Amazon S3, Amazon RDS, Amazon Redshift, and others. DynamoDB, which represents the NoSQL database. But look at the crawlers. These are the crawlers that looks into what's the structure. In this column, is it an integer column? What is the how many features does this column has? What is the nature of this column? How many rows does it have? How many columns? And all other necessary things in terms of schema, in terms of partition. So these are all the details that he brings together and is being managed into into tables under the AWS data catalog. All right, so let's go ahead. Next slide, please. Okay, good. You know, like I mentioned, you'll be surprised. We are dealing with data, but Glue data catalog, we are saying that it's storing metadata. What are these metadata? And that's the essence of this slide. Some examples of the metadata that Glue data catalog is taken from a particular data is includes number one, the table names, the schema, the columns in terms of number of columns, and the data types, which is very necessary. Similarly, partition data sources. Let's say you have some data sources on S3 that has been partitioned. It brings these details and the partition keys. You can also get the metadata such as column statistics. What is the main on this column? If it's the numerical data, if it's categorical data, you can know the distribution about it, the minimum and maximum value. But even though the column statistics only goes with numerical data, because you want to look at the maximum value data distribution, different data types. Then other data includes the properties data source. So I just try to bring it out so that you'll be able to know. Even though the main data is being managed by the AWS data lake, that's where the major data of like the content. Let me put a quick imagination to it. Take for instance, I know the issue of fuel is common now. So let me just use that example, even though it's not a good one. Let's assume you have a keg you went to use to get fuel. The fuel that you are putting inside the keg is the data itself. But the description of the keg is what we are talking about. This keg is has 10 liter capacity. This keg is rectangular in shape. This keg has blue color. Those are the metadata that Glue data the crawlers get from all these different data source and store inside table. So based on this data, e use this data to be able to ensure data consis ten cies are across this table whenever we want to use it to bring out insight using our normal querying software. So there is a way that the data catalog is also related to the AWS data lake that houses the data. In the case example that I cited, maybe petrol. So I want you to get it right so that you won't mix things up. So let's go ahead. Next slide, please. All right, now coming to the main deal. This is like where the main deal of our topic, because we are looking at the updates. And before you have updates, that means there have been some challenges that have been seen with respect to how things has been done. So that's why I'm putting it here. One of the key updates challenges before the data updates on the data catalog and multi-engine view is that number one, customers need to create a view and want to access that field across multiple SQL engines. So when customer want to do this, they need to create it separately for each engine. So let's say you have different multiple sources, you have engine. Instead of you to be able to use just one view to look at different views, to look at different, to use different um AWS, like take for instance Redshift, Athena, just to use to create one view that you've generated, you need to create it multiple times. Number two is coming to respect to access. If you have different sources, the owner of those data source need to give you access for you to be able to access, to see what views you are creating. So in an organization whereby you have different, so like the case of the situation of limitless enterprise that I mentioned earlier, look at if they have to get access from different, can you see that it will be like a tedious process for them to even generate a simple analytics. So which is being shown in the picture put on the extras rather from the AWS website, just to show that, oh, these things that I'm bringing, this is the source. So now let's look at the updates. Next slide. Okay, so I say let me first start here. There are a lot of updates that has been made to AWS Glue, but our focus for today is about the updates made to Glue data catalog to support multi-engine views, and that was published on 27th November 2023. That's last year, to show that now AWS Glue Data Catalog support multi-engine views with AWS Analytics Engine. So now let's explore more. What are they trying to say so that we can know? Next slide, please. Okay, great. So what are now the updates to the Glue Data Catalog and multi-engine views? We've looked at the limitation that we were facing before the update. Now, they're now telling us now that Glue Data Hub now supports the creation, management, and access control of SQL views that support multiple engines. What are they trying to say? What they are trying to say in essence that instead of creating multiple views from different database or from multiple sources, you can now create a single view object that can be queried from multiple engines without consumers having to access the base tables of the view. So the explanation of what they are trying to say here is that, let's assume you have data access from data from X3, you have data from your RDS, maybe MySQL or anyone, you pass it through your data catalog, then you use your Amazon Athena in correlation with the AWS data catalog to get a view. Now you want to create another view from another source. You don't need to go through the process again. You just need to give grant permission. So I unfortunately I plan a practical demo, but with respect to time, I'm not sure that will be possible. But let's see what we can achieve. But that's the essence of the upgrades. This is the focus of what we have come here to discuss. This is one of the updates that every data professional should be aware of, especially those involved with AWS Glue data, which are using it for their day-to-day jobs, so that they can use this update to optimize the way they work. So the last, I mentioned something about being able to access some things. AWS the AWS products responsible for that is the lake formation, which give permissions to resources. Don't forget, I told you that the lake formation is the one, data lake rather, is the one that has the real data itself. The data catalog just takes in the metadata from different database and use it to create tables, which is being accessed by all these Athena. So next slide, please. All right, so I just felt like, since we are looking at the data catalog, the multi-engine fields, let me just expand more a little bit about the multi-engine fields. You know, when you are looking at the data sources, that's one where it's being passed to the AWS data catalog to retrieve the necessary metadata, which is now being fed. Can you see the diagram beside, which is now being fed to the multi-engine views? So the multi-engine views on this diagram is the Amazon Athena, Amazon Redshift, Amazon EMR. Why the multiple data sources the data sources that I was talking about is on this other side. Amazon Redshift, Amazon S3, Amazon RDS, Amazon EC2, maybe when you are using it for a particular storage. You can see that Redshift is appearing at both storage side and at the analytical side. Those are some functions that Redshift have over some other services. But my major thing that I want you to get here is to ensure that you know what is the significance of this multi-edge views since there's this update. The first thing is to ensure a unified analytics. Unified analytics. If Limitless Enterprise have this unified analytics, they won't have the difficulty of inefficient data management, which is giving them trouble to bring out a simple report on their sales. Similarly, data access. Because, or I mentioned to you that the lake ensure permission to necessary data. So how it works is that the lake is not giving you access to the base data where the database is stored, but to be able to see the view that has been created by another user, another person from using another multi-engine can also view this so far he has been given the access to view that data. So in a way, the data is still stored because when we are dealing with data, we still need to talk about the security. How am I sure that the data is not abstracted to be used? But we are talking about the viewing to be able to create insight, not being able to access data to use for other things. So you need to take note of that. So similarly, it's optimizing analytic for flow, and lastly, at the end of the day, be able to collaborate well since you don't need to do things individually. So next slide, we are trying to wrap up. All right, so I feel it's very important to mention some use cases of data catalog before leaving here so that people having the opportunity to listen to me will just know what, yes, we've known the idea behind this, what are they used for. Number one is to use to creating a data lake using AWS lake formations. That means you can connect your data catalog to data lake. Data lake, don't forget, has data. Data catalog has the metadata. We've tried to explain the metadata in earlier. The second one is using querying external data using Athena and Redshift Spectrum. That's one of the things that I've said. You are able to use these soft solutions, AWS solutions, to query data even though they are not yours, but you have been given permission to query them, so you can use it to create insight based. So that means, when you talk about AWS organization, you could have different accounts managing different database. Then with respect to this, just name one account and another organization to give you the grant permission. Similarly, data processing analysis using Amazon EMR for those of us that are familiar with this. So this is one of the use cases. And lastly, using Glue data catalog as standalone metastore. There are actually quite a number of use cases. The lastly that I was trying to say that the ones that I've listed here, so and you can see the explanation that has been put just to reinforce the concept of what I'm trying to say. We also try to look at some practical use cases. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. Next slide. All right, so these are some practical use cases of, don't forget, AWS Glue is the ETL software. AWS data catalog, Glue data catalog is the art of AWS Glue. So look at the direction at which we are bringing out the information. So now we've spoken about the usage of AWS Glue data catalog in the last slide. Now, as the overall, how are we using AWS Glue? One of the key things is to simplify ETL pipeline development. As a data scientist or machine learning engineer or data analyst, you need data pipeline to bring out the result that you need. So AWS Glue help you extract, transform, and put it into right use for what you want to make use of. Take for instance, majorly I'm more into machine learning, data science, building machine learning models. So when I able to get my data, I direct it to the model I want to train. Similarly, interactive explore, experiment on and process data. This is more of when we are looking at the aspect of the data analyst, they want to explore the data and bring out insight. This one thing they want to do: discover data efficiently and support various processing framework and workload. Next slide. As we are rounding up, all right, so I know we've talked about use cases of data catalog, we've talked about use cases of AWS Glue. But lastly, I just said I should also bring about that. Yeah, these are some great. I'm very sure we know BMW. You might not be familiar with other ones, but okay, General Electric, we should at least we should have some idea about. So these are big companies that are making wise use of AWS Glue to achieve great things. Can you see BM BMW Group uses AWS-based data lake to unlock the power of data. So one of the key technologies that they use here, apart from other ones, is AWS Glue. So to ensure that it processes the data and they're able to bring insight. Similarly, NG built a common data hub on AWS, accelerates zero carbon transition. So can you see this one of the SDG goals and see how they are using the AWS service to manage their data, and it's helping them with this zero carbon uh, problem and that transition. And these are other two. Can you see Meg has used the platform to reduce data costs? Can you see? So these are some advantages when you introduce all these technologies to your business, especially for those that are using cloud on cloud solutions. All right, so I next slide. I think the next slide has some references for to see where I got most of my resources that I've used to prepare the slide. I also have some links there that actually showed implementations of Glue, the latest innovation of Glue, and how it can be used. Glue is very important, and these updates are very essential, especially the multi-engine views when it comes to people in the field of data analytics and machine learning engineering, application building, anything that involves data. You need to process data, because whatever you are building is as good as the data that you are using. So if you don't process your data well, extract it well, get quality data or make it quality, you are doing nothing. So it's very essential to take note of this. And I hope with this short presentation that I've had, I hope that I was able to impact some knowledge to you. And I don't know, at whatever level that you find yourself, if you are a beginner or someone that is familiar with this, maybe this knowledge will help you improve to see how you can use it better. Or if you're a beginner, it's a base of introduction. That's why I've tried to make emphasize on some basic concepts to be able to allow you grasp what I'm trying to say. So thank you very much for listening to me. I really appreciate the organizers for next slide. I think the next slide is just the appreciation slide. I appreciate the organizer, the AWS Cloud Security Group West Africa, for giving me this great opportunity to speak on this topic, to share from my knowledge, and I will be open to uh, answer any question that is available that the listeners might have, or any form of contribution to what you have said. Yeah, or sharing knowledge. So thank you once again for having me, and I will be looking forward if there's any questions to answer. All right, thank you. Hello. I don't know if there's any question. You can send it through the message, or I'll be able to um, look, and so that I can answer before the moderator comes up. Oh, Mayowa, thank you for your question. I can see you asked, can Guild catalog be connected to God?
Thank you so much, Abdulatif Ogundi.
Hello, um, Tolu, are you there? Hello. I don't know if anyone from the audience can confirm if they can hear me. I want to be sure I'm not the one off. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for that, Mayowa. Let me just answer your question briefly before Tolu comes back. So, with respect to third-party API as multi-engine view like Elasticsearch, you've actually provide a kind of idea to like answering your question. But one of the major things is actually possible based on my information that I have. It can be used with some connectors that are built on maybe Lambda. And when you have Lambda, you can interact with third-party API. So based on Lambda, Lambda invoke the function within the Glue workflow. So it can be like you've asked, it can be connected, but it has to have some medium. Take for instance, for the one for invoking the AWS Lambda. I hope you find this helpful. With respect to, I hope you find that helpful. Please, if you have any other question, please feel free to share, and I will try to provide information that I have as regard this before we end the session for today while still waiting for Tolulope. Okay, so in the absence of any other question, I would like to appreciate everyone for joining. Also to apologize for starting a little bit beyond schedule. Take for instance, I had intention to show you some demo, and unfortunately, due to the time constraint and due to the technical issues that we have, but be sure if you go to AWS Glue, you will be able to find all necessary details that you need. It's a very simple process. When you go to AWS Glue, you'll be able to create database, uh, be able to create the table using crawler, and be able to use the metadata getting by the data catalog to um, join your analytics platform. So it's as simple as what I've shown you in my slide. Please do well to like our social media pages and also join us for other events that we'll be having. So on behalf of the AWS cloud security user West Africa, the people coordinating, I want to thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having you in our other sessions. So till other time, I remain Ognipe Abdulatif, and I hope to see you some other time to share what I know about um, cloud generally, because it's something I'm quite um, elated to speak about. All right, thank you. Until other time, bye.